DJ Scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Hood rich.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And welcome back. Welcome back. We have some more appetizers for you this evening. Some more appetizers for you. And I'm talking about UFC 329, Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2. And this is the results show, the reaction show to this. So by now, this is a couple days after the event. So by now, I imagine most of you have heard about the outcome and how the main event fell through. And I didn't really fell through. It happened, but it was very uneventful and had a poor outcome. It's not uncommon for UFC events. People having to wait till 11 o'clock, or depending on if you're on the East Coast, even midnight for these main event cards, what are supposed to be like super fights, and then you end up being very disappointed in the outcomes of them. But I tried to warn a lot of people in the pre-fight show about how there's looking almost at the prelims. The prelims almost looked more exciting and looked more interesting than the main card after you kind of got past the co and the main event on this card. I mean, just going off of like superstar names, and then no title possibility changing hands. There really wasn't a lot to look at this card. After that, this wasn't really much more than a fight night. And even you could have just looked at the prelims and then early prelims and been like, hey, that's good enough for a fight night. So we tried to warn you. And then hell, the total, the co-main event and main event, hell, they total like completion, like fight time, they only lasted like 3 minutes combined. So we'll get into that more when we get to those fights. Start actually talk about those fights singularly. But let's talk about a little bit about the dates and attendance, and talk about a little bit of the prelims, about how good they were before we get to the main card. So this is Max Holloway. This is UFC 329, Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2, and this was July 11th, 2026. So it's just this past Saturday, and this was at T-Mobile Arena in Paradise, Nevada, United States, and in Las Vegas. And the attendance was 20,078, and the total gate was 26,000. It's 26 million, 26.4 million. And there's some extra numbers there that kind of read out for it to be a record later. We'll get to the records towards the end of the podcast here. But let's talk about the prelims in regards to them just being so good. Before the main card kind of being a little bit of a not really, the main card really wasn't a disappointment. It was more just kind of the main event was a disappointment, but the prelims were great, just with all the stoppages that you got, which they were also maybe kind of fit in to those records. So we got a couple records that were set on this night that we'll talk about at the end of this podcast. But we'll just go over all the stoppages that happened on the prelims, and then we'll get into the main card. But for the first fight on the card, you had Alessandro Costa in the flyweight division defeated Cody Durden at the second round. In the second round, at the 219 mark, submission, rear naked choke, right off the bat. You had a finish submission in this card, and then to to follow that up, yeah, in the second fight on the early prelims, you had a middleweight bout between Ryan Gran Grandrai defeated Zachariah Reese TKO punches at the 115 mark of the first round. And then this would have been the fourth fight up. This is middleweight bout between Damain Peñas versus defeated Cesar Almeida at the 444 mark of the first round. Another KO punch. So if you take out that no contest, DQ, whatever you want to call it, Damian Peñas is on like 11 fight KO winning streak. So pretty impressive fighter to follow. So just to keep an eye on him. So just the early prelims had three pretty impressive and exciting fights to watch there just to start off with. So like I was saying, this fight, if you wanted to really enjoy UFC 329, you definitely needed to watch it from the start to all the way to the finish, where it slammed on, felt like it kind of slammed on the brakes with the main event a little bit. And then onto the standard prelims. The first fight on the standard prelims, you had a featherweight bout between Luke Riley. Luke Riley defeated Kai Kamaka the third TKO knees and punches at the 303 mark of the first round. And then second fight on the standard prelims, you had a bantamweight bout. Andre Yanez knocked out. We got came back to earth. Just the world is right. We got to see the glass jaw of Cody Garbrandt, and he was kind of standing there. I think that was against Joe Rogan was doing the interviews at the end of the fight. I thought he was kind of standing there at the end there, kind of trying to get in on a interview with Joe Rogan, and he was holding his gloves. I thought he was going to lay him down, which honestly he should, but we got to see the legendary glass jaw of Cody Garbrandt, but he got TKO punches and in the first round at the 247 mark. So that was a classic, definitely there. And then in the kind of the most interesting and what I was most intrigued about, and really what I wanted to see the most on this card out of everything, and what wasn't even on the main card, was the Gable Stevenson fight. Was and ended up being, so it was the Gable Stevenson versus Elijah Ellison bout, which was the heavyweight bout. And that was a pretty good back and forth between those guys. Honestly, they're both very similar body styles, and both, I guess, they're both wrestlers that prefer to strike. So you saw a pretty decent back and forth between them, but Gable Stevenson just kind of overwhelmed him at the end of the fight for how long it lasted, which it didn't last very long, because that fight ended up only lasting to the 231 mark of the first round, and it ended KO knees and punches with Gable Stevenson knocking out Ellison in the first round. And you got to see an H-bomb, Dan Henderson classic, with it just looked like, I don't know, with like it must have been like a knee landed by Gable Stevenson, which was kind of hard to see with like the camera angle. And then just like off the top, you saw Gable like it was kind of like a whiplash looking at action from Ellison with time, and how he just kind of like fell back like looking like he was like dead, like straight like aligned with how he was up against his like side against the cage, and then you saw Gable Stevenson just come right over the top with a Dan Henderson H bomb, which was that got me excited. That was probably maybe one of the best moments of the night there. So seeing Gable Stevenson, who very similar type of style. I think he needs a couple more matches, a couple more fights to get him there. But the whole time seeing him fight, I'm thinking like he's a great wrestler that's got knockout power and has decent strikes and doesn't seem to be too concerned about getting hit himself. Sounds very very similar to Josh Hokett that we've seen kind of running through people recently, and they're very similar in size and stature. So maybe a couple more fights down the line. I wouldn't mind seeing Gable Stevens and Hokett maybe matching up if Hokett's not the heavyweight champion in maybe a year or two. And then the main event on the prelims, we had another knockout. So all knockouts, either TKOs or KOs on the prelims. We had finishes on them. We got to see fat Robert Whitaker, which I don't really understand that. Really, maybe it's just because he's getting older. How old is Robert Whitaker? I think he's younger than me, or I think he is. No, okay, so he's like the same age as me. So Robert Whitaker, he's 35 years old, but they've always talked. You always hear them talk about how he uh, walks around. His walk around weight is 220, and he's like originally started fighting what at welterweight, which is what like 170, and then he moved up to middleweight, which is 185, and always looked like he's a little bigger for both of those weight classes, especially welterweight 170. But you would think if he moves up to 205, then okay, he just doesn't have to cut as much weight, and so he only has to cut 15 pounds to make 205. So why was he so fat looking? So thick looking. He kind of looked like Alex Pereira looked at heavyweight. But the difference was he wasn't slow like Alex Pereira was. He didn't lose his speed. So that's where he kind of got into his groove towards the end of this fight against Nikita Krylov and just started eating Nikita Krylov up with his speed and agility and his boxing. And we got to see Robert Whitaker break Nikita Krylov's jaw. So we got Nikita Krylov just waving after a hard shot from Robert Whitaker. We had Nikita Krylov waving Robert Whitaker off due to a broken jaw at the 101 mark of the third round. So aesthetically, Robert Whitaker didn't look real great because he looked a little thick, a little chunky, like he had a little weight to him. But I mean, he was moving well, and he broke Nikita Krylov's jaw and got him out of there. Even though, hell, I mean, looking at Nikita Krylov standing each other, fighting each other, hell, it looked like Nikita Krylov was in a different weight class with how much bigger he was than Robert Whitaker. So I don't know if there's a way for Robert Whitaker to bulk up and lose some of the fat and keep his cardio, or one or the other. But he won, so I guess that's the main goal here. So we got to see Robert Whitaker break Nikita Krylov's jaw. So that was probably so Gable Stevenson with the H bomb and Robert Whitaker breaking Nikita Krylov's jaw were some of the most exciting moments on this card. So and that's the prelim. So that's kind of why I was warning you guys, like kind of after the main event on this card, because there's no titles possibly changing hand. Hell, you might as well just tune in to UFC 329. Just tune into the early and the standard prelims and just tune into that as a fight night, basically, because that's how it was, and it was probably better than most fight nights that you watch on these every other Saturdays or or so often. But anyway, so that's the prelims. I went into that more than I usually do, but that's mainly because the co-main event and the main event didn't last more than combined. They only lasted 2 minutes actually. I said three, but not even three. Just 2 minutes is how long those two fights lasted combined. But anyways, so let's get into the main card now. So can I get a menu? And so the first fight on the card, we didn't make any picks on the prelims, but we actually did make the picks for the main card. So the first fight on the card, we had a lightweight bout between King Green versus Terrence McKinney. And in this fight, I originally just picked it at the scale tipper for me on this card for this fight basically was the age. You know what Terrence McKinney's what almost 10 years younger than King Green, and these fighters, but both of these guys, Terrence McKinney and King Green, are similar fighters just in regards to they're just very just breakneck speed type of fighters in regards to they're going to go all out and they just want to fight and they're do whatever they can to win the fight. But the thing is, I think King Green is just a lot tougher than Terrence McKinney. Has a lot more no quit than him. Has a lot more dog in him than Terrence McKinney because Terrence McKinney, I'll give it to him. Coming out in this fight, King Green was doing usually what he usually does. He has his hands down and talking trash and trying to catch Terrence McKinney with a counter with how he has the hands down. But hell, Terrence McKinney was just literally just walking through, walked through King Green and all of that, and punched and was able to get him down to the ground and was beating him up with ground and pound. And I was honestly thinking it was looking pretty close to where the ref was going to come in there and stop it due to the ground and pound that Terrence McKinney was putting on King Green. But then King Green, like I said, he got that dog in him and was able to get up towards like with about just like a minute or so left in the fight, and he was able to get up. And I think Terrence McKinney thought that he was just about to get the stoppage with the ground and pound and stuff that he was laying on King Green. I think he blew his gas tank trying to get the stoppage there. So then when he got up, King Green was throwing these front kicks with these front kicks to his midsection and trying to land these liver kicks. And then he threw one threw an uppercut to Terrence McKinney's liver. And then he went down with about 10 seconds left shortly after he went down and kind of went into a fetal position up against the cage. And the clappers went off, and King Green was just kind of landing like nonstop ground and pound on him. Nothing looked like it was really like real serious. But Terrence McKinney wasn't doing anything to improve his position. Was just covering up. And I was thinking like, oh man, 10 seconds of just being balled up in a fetal position is not looking real good to the ref. And of course, with just 1 second left, the ref stepped in and stopped it due to TKO punches. And so so King Green ended up winning this fight. So the lightweight bout, curtain jerker for this fight. Pretty exciting way to win and way to start the main card with King Green defeating Terrence McKinney TKO punches at the 4:59 mark of the first round. 1 second left in the first round. And I picked Terrence McKinney, but just because of how crazy the first round was going and the back and forth and with how much trash talking King Green was doing, I wanted to see it get to the second round. And then, afterwards, after the fight and after the event and stuff, you got fans and different fighters, and Terrence McKinney is saying that he thought it should have went to the second round or made it to the second round. But man, you can't just roll up in the fetal position for 10 seconds and do nothing and expect the ref not to step in and stop the fight. So, I wanted to see it go to the second round, but I I'm okay with it. I see why he stopped it. All right. So didn't get that win, but it went how I expected it to go. I figured one or the other was going to get stopped in that fight. So just continuing with the knockouts, continuing with the stoppages on this card. Like I said, was big disappointment with the main event on this card, but definitely can't say the card itself what isn't great. All right. So now then, moving on to the second fight on the card, we had a bout between Brandon Royval versus Lanier Lanier Kavanagh. And I originally picked Brandon Royval to win this fight uh, via decision, just because I thought this was kind of a really just like a big step up in competition for Lanier Kavanagh. And hey, if nothing else, he showed in this fight that he deserves that 6'5", 6 ranking that he had coming into this fight. I guess he took that 5 or 6 ranking. He took that when he beat Brandon Moreno. But he definitely showed that he deserved that because he came pretty close to winning this fight in the second round. Brandon Royval came out in the first round, pretty much dominated the first round. Anywhere the fight went, either standing or on the ground, it pretty much controlled anywhere the fight went in the first round. But then in the second round, when they were standing, Lanier Kavanagh actually dropped Brandon Royval pretty bad, and then was beating them up pretty good with some ground and pound, and kind of had him in full was in Brandon Royval's like full guard, and kind of hitting him like this with ground and pound, and you were seeing Brandon Royval kind of walking backwards with his shoulders, and man, I thought just any second the looked like I thought the ref was about to step in and stop it due to the ground and pound there, but then he's got him clinched up and was blocking the punches a little bit better, and was able to recover and was able to get back up. And then when he got back up, I felt like Lanier Kavanagh was going to drop him again. But man, Brandon Royval showed great stamina and great recovery skills, because he was fine after that. But I thought I was just waiting for him to get dropped and knocked out again after that. But Brandon Royval showed great recovery skills from that. But I would say Lanier Kavanagh definitely won the second round off of dropping Brandon Royval then. But then Brandon Royval had a very similar round to what he had in the first round. In the third round, to then he dropped Lanier Kavanagh, was able to take him down at the end of the third round, to where he was then able to beat Lanier Kavanagh up enough with some ground and pound, to where he was able to end up getting a rear naked choke on him, and was pretty close to putting him out before he tapped. It was pretty close. I think he tapped right before he put him to sleep. I think he tapped right before he put him to sleep, or it was pretty close. It's saying he tapped here. So, but yeah, but Brandon Royval, it was pretty close to my getting the decision. I think Brandon Royval, if it would have went to decision, would have won the first and the third round. But Brandon Royval did end up winning this fight at the 3:40 mark of the third round. So we're starting this fight off 1-1. All right. Now then, on to the third fight on the card. We had a bantamweight bout between Mario Batista versus Corey Sandhagen. And this is another fight. And this is Mario Batista versus Corey Sandhagen 2. So these guys fought like 7 years ago, and Corey Sandhagen armbarred Mario Batista. So it's kind of interesting that Corey Sandhagen beat Mario Batista on the ground with grappling skills, because that coming into this fight, that's kind of what Mario Batista's was considered as having a better skill. Was known for being that was going to be his path to victory over Corey Sandhagen, as to that he has better wrestling and better submission and jiu-jitsu skills than Mario Batista, even though in their first matchup he got armbarred by Corey Sandhagen. But I mean, maybe that, I think that may have been how this fight turned out. But I feel you could maybe argue this decision a little bit. I'm a little surprised that it ended up not being a split decision, because it did end up being a decision victory for Mario Batista. So it ended up being a unanimous decision, 29-28, 29-28, 29-28, over 3 rounds, 5-minute rounds, 15 minutes. But Corey Sandhagen looked pretty good in the first round, just kind of point striking, and looked like he controlled most of the fight, doing that just in the striking, and but at the end of the first round was taken down, and it looked like Mario Batista was trying to kind of work on a knee bar, and then with that knee bar he rolled to a see what it was called, Solove stretch. And I guess that Solove stretch, it like tore Corey Sandhagen's, I think it's left hamstring a little bit. And I think this is what lost Corey Sandhagen the first round, and is what lost him the fight, really, because he won one of these rounds at least. I think he either won, he must have won either, he either won either the first or the second round. And if this lost him, this Solove stretch that tore his hamstring in the first round, lost him the first round, because of how he was limping. He was limping back to his corner at the end of the fight. So some of the judges could have seen how bad he was limping at the end of the fight, due to that Solove stretch, even though he was only in it for like about 10 seconds before the clappers went off. Even though I saw there was a fighter just a couple fight nights ago that was submitted by way of one, but he wasn't in it very long, but he was limping real bad. So the judges may have judged that as damage, but I mean, obviously it was damage. It tore his hamstring a little bit, so that may have cost Corey Sandhagen the first round, even though it seemed like he kind of point striked his way to winning the first round. And then he did the same thing, kind of point strike, even though his movement wasn't quite as great in the second round, but still seemed like he kind of point striked his way to winning the second round, and was able to keep the majority of the fight standing in the second round. But then Mario Batista, I think he dropped Corey Sandhagen in the third round, and then I think ended the fight on the ground, or was able to take Corey Sandhagen down again in the third round. Definitely won the third round. But man, I feel that fight was closer than just a straight up unanimous decision. But man, that Solove, let's say that Solove stretch, man, tore his hamstring, and that was just pretty much ended that fight for Corey Sandhagen at the end of the first round. So in the bantamweight bout between Mario Batista versus Corey Sandhagen, Mario Batista defeated Corey Sandhagen by decision, unanimous, 29-28, 29-28, 29-28. And that was just a 3-round, 5-minute round fight, 15 minutes. All right. So now then, on to the co-main event of this fight. This is a lightweight bout, and this wasn't a title eliminator bout, or for like an interim belt or anything. And like, my main concern coming into this fight for picking Paddy Pimblin was that, man, it would really help if this was a 5-minute round fight, because the thing with Benoit Saint Denis is that he's been beaten. What is like on like a 4 or 5 fight winning streak where he's like knocking like everyone out. So if Paddy Pimblin can kind of drag him into deep waters, maybe that would like him benefit him a little bit. Well, I mean, we can just completely throw that angle out the window because he didn't need it. He didn't need any of those. He didn't need the fourth or the fifth round because he only needed 52 seconds to beat Benoit Saint Denis. But I picked Paddy Pimblin to submit Benoit Saint Denis, and because it didn't have the fourth or the fifth round, I picked Paddy Pimblin to win this fight, but I had to go ahead and pick him to do it in the late second round or in the third round, hoping that maybe Benoit Saint Denis would be gassed by then. But didn't have to worry about that because pretty early in the fight he stuck his head right into a guillotine choke. He stuck his head into a guillotine choke, and then Paddy Pimblin transitioned it into a Peruvian choke, and then he wrapped his legs around Benoit Saint Denis like he was like Spider-Man, or like I think Paddy Pimblin said like he was like a tarantula, like he's a spider. And before you know it, he put Benoit Saint Denis to sleep. He was asleep night. So I got that one right. Submission definitely didn't get the rounds right. The fight didn't go how I expected in regards to Paddy Pimblin trying to drag Benoit Saint Denis into deep waters. But hey, man, if the guy literally puts his head into a guillotine choke, and you're able to transition it into something even more dangerous, and you're as dry as you are, and you can get it as tight as you can like that, might as well go for it. And Paddy Pimblin did, man. So that was impressive victory by Paddy Pimblin. But with main events, sometimes you want to see him go a little bit longer than that. But with how this whole night had gone, man, you love seeing all these finishes, these knockouts, these TKOs, these submissions. So in the lightweight bout between Paddy Pimblin versus Benoit Saint Denis, Paddy Pimblin defeated Benoit Saint Denis technical submission, and that's technical submission because he was asleep. They had to check his arm, to see if he was awake, and he was a limp. He was slumped, literally. Peruvian necktie. It was a guillotine choke, transition to Peruvian necktie at the 52-second mark of the first round. All right, now then, on to the main event of UFC 329. We have a welterweight bout between Max Holloway versus Conor McGregor. So that's Max Holloway versus Conor McGregor 2. So this is a fight that was, it was big build up. Conor McGregor hadn't fought in 2 years. There's the verbal back and forth. Like I said, Conor McGregor hadn't fought in 5 years. And Conor McGregor, I get lured in to these vibes, so they get me hooked in to these vibes with Conor McGregor, with the kind of stuff that he says to Max Holloway about their previous fight, and slapping the POV glasses off his head, making fun of the bulletproof vest or the life jacket that he's wearing and stuff like that, and just thinking that Max Holloway's smaller, coming up from a smaller weight class, and Conor McGregor, he's been on PEDs, HGH, steroids. He's just gonna run into a punch and get KO'd. That's kind of just what we're feeling. That's just kind of the feels. So I just went all out for it and picked Conor McGregor to knock Max Holloway out, and we didn't get any of that. We didn't even get Conor McGregor's a punch thrown from Conor McGregor, and only got like one or two thrown from Max Holloway before he just kind of threw his hands up and to the ref and said, "I'm not throwing a punch at an injured fighter." And so there's a lot of speculation swirling around this fight, and I guess I'll just go with my opinion on it. I think Conor McGregor, I think he was hurt already coming into this fight. I think he's just got bum ass knees. He's old and he's taken a lot of beatings in his time. What was it? It was his first fight, like what, 13 years ago, against Max Holloway. I know it was 13 years ago, but his first fight against him, he blew out the same knee, yeah, ACL injury. So it's not like he hadn't had leg injuries before. And then was the other leg was the one where he broke the shin bone and stuff. So it's not like Conor McGregor hasn't had tons of injuries. So I'm thinking he was probably already hurt coming into this fight. And even if he wasn't already like seriously injured coming into this fight, it's not like he hasn't had an injury history with lower leg injuries and things like that. And for him to come out jumping up in the air and throwing kicks and trying to do trying to do Chuck Norris spinning roundhouse kicks and things like that. It's just, maybe just like technical boxing, like kind of like what we saw you kind of doing for the first, or maybe for the first couple rounds, like what you were doing with Floyd Mayweather. Maybe would have been maybe a better strategy to go at than jumping up in the air and like the first landing that you come down on, you see a jolt in your calf muscle and in your knee, and it looks like something has given way and you're done. So yeah, so the main event, it just completely just fell out and just completely went to the complete crap show for the main event there with a TKO knee injury by Conor McGregor. So in the welterweight bout between Max Holloway and versus Conor McGregor, Max Holloway defeated Conor McGregor, TKO knee injury that we're thinking, what I think it's a right knee injury, ACL most likely, at the 109 mark of the first round. And so, hopefully that's the end of Conor McGregor, even though we're hearing stuff about him saying, "Oh, I'm gonna be back. I'll be back." And if he is back, I want to see Chandler or Tyson or Michael Chandler or something like that. Someone he owes a fight to like that. Like I don't want to see him versus Max Holloway or Dustin Poirier or anything like that. But honestly, just don't really even want to see him again. I don't want to get baited in to it again. But even if he does somehow come back, it's going to be a couple of years, and it'll be a year, at least a year or more, due to the whole knee injury thing, and probably end in a similar fashion, some type of injury, just because that'll be two fights in a row now that it's ended in an injury, the broken shin bone, and now the knee injury. But anyway, so that's UFC 329. I just can't really spill my guts too much more about the whole Conor McGregor thing. Like, I'm not really surprised by it, but it is annoying. And like I said, that I feel clowned a little bit. That they baited me into believing that we were getting a Conor McGregor, and I can't say, man, he looked good, but obviously lower extremities weren't right coming into this fight. But anyway, so let's get into the bonus awards and the records that were set on this night, and we'll get up out of here. So bonus awards for this fight. So these are the $100,000 bonuses that these fighters received, because fighters already received the $25,000 additional for finishes. Which there were a lot of them on this card. There were 11 of them, which that set a record with other events that tied other events like UFC Fight Night Rockhold versus Bisping, UFC 224, UFC 281, and UFC Fight Night Imov versus Bora Laho. So those all had 11 finishes. But the fight of the night was Brandon Royval versus Lanier Kavanagh. And then the performance of the night was Patty Pimblin and King Green. So respectable, but there was definitely a lot of options with all the TKOs, KOs, and submissions on this card. So definitely could be a lot of arguments for many of the other fighters on this card. And then the other record that was set was the event generated sales was like I said, it's for ticket sales, the mass. So it was like kind of went into it like 26 million point four. And I guess the biggest gate before that was UFC 306, which was September 2024. And that was 21 million point eight. So that was a pretty big increase. But so that's UFC 329. Matt Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2. And let's see, jump ahead a little bit. There's actually quite a few fight nights here that have like a lot of big names and superstar power, but just kind of skip ahead here to the next numbered card here. So that's next numbered card is UFC 330. That's Makachev versus Machado Gary for the welterweight championship. And then you have Mackenzie Dern defending the strawweight bout. I mean, Jillian Robertson. So yeah, not the biggest names or the biggest titles in the world, but hey, I think it's other than Conor McGregor, retirement home, wheelchair uh, wheelchair grade Conor McGregor. Besides his name being on UFC 329, definitely a huge improvement over UFC 329 with the two titles on the line for UFC 330. So that's just exactly a month away from July 15th. So that's August 15th. So UFC 330. So that's a month from now, and hopefully, hopefully the main card for that will be hopefully the main event for that will be better, because I can't say the undercard or the co-main event for UFC 329. It was just the main event that wasn't any good. But anyways, I think that's about all I had for you. So can I get a check, please?